Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. Again, a small mention about the name of this series. When I started these videos in 2013, Freemasonry I chose because there are secret societies all over the world. Freemasons, Rosicrucian, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, the Illuminati, Communist parties, Zionist groups. We all know all these people into different kinds of cults, temples, lodges, so-called religious organizations. And then the Satanism part of the title was to combine the material aspects of our reality, humans and 3D, with the 4D interdimensional type of beings, spiritual beings, fallen angels, Palladians, Anunnaki. So I was trying to combine the two malevolent, sinister, evil forces, human forces out there, secret societies, all kinds of cults, and apparently sinister and malevolent, demonic, angelic, spiritual forces. That doesn't mean there can't be good religious organizations and good humans. And it doesn't mean there can't even be good spiritual entities, angels, God, Jesus coming in the flesh, the Holy Spirit, prophets, and so much more. So we're dealing with these evil forces trying seemingly to destroy the good forces. And apparently it's a cosmic battle. Biblically, it's supposed to be happening in heaven also, in the 4D other dimension reality, heaven or Hades or whatever realities may exist out there. So that's where I got the name Freemasonry and Satanism, after reading books for almost 10 years trying to figure out what the heck is going on planet Earth. On 2005, when I went on a vacation to Costa Rica on a big zero birthday, sat at a tiki bar, and people from all over the world said they felt sorry for we Americans because we didn't know what was going on. So I started my research, and of course that was after 2001, 9/11, which certainly caused a lot of concern amongst we USA citizens, as well as the world. And we have seen what's happened since 9/11, the complete annihilation and destruction of most of the towns and cities throughout the Middle East, and so much more. Legislation passed to reduce our constitutional rights here in the USA, and false flags, efforts to disarm Americans, so much more. So what is going on has been the purpose of my investigation. And this video is going to be another filler video. Books I had read back during my almost 10 years of reading and researching before I felt I was qualified to write books. I never thought I would start out making videos. I had done a lot of writing, essays and comments and stuff like that throughout my career in electronic engineering or my business career. And even in the research, I did a lot of essays and even did some radio talk shows on Higher Consciousness Today out of Key West, with a friend of mine, Richard, would call me up, and I was the technical expert online. I had studied the aliens and religious history, cultist history, political history. Anyways, the book today will be HAARP by Jerry Smith, series number 32, filling in one of the blank spots when I reorganized my videos after making them for almost 4 years, reaching up to series number 150. almost 400 videos posted with about 500 hours on a assorted collection of topics, from aliens to the Freemasons, UFOs, Project Montauk, Philadelphia Experiment, conspiracy researchers, Jim Mars, Michael Rupert, William Cooper, Bill Cooper, the creature from Jekyll Island, Griffin's book, stuff about the psychic research, Theophist Society, Psychic World, Occult Theocracy, Occult Encyclopedia. Then I acquired the Encyclopedia Judaica last year, November, December. That's been a fascinating investigation. And the many hours of videos I've made on the Kabbalah, anti-Semitism, Zionism, Jewish history, Jewish famous people, and so much more. So apparently there has been this so-called anti-Semitism, if you want to call it that, going on for 2,500 years. It wasn't something I invented or anybody invented 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 400 years ago, 800 years ago. It's been around a long time. Certain groups of people did not want to integrate with other groups. And I don't care if it was China, India, England, Germany, even the United States. So why was that? Is there some kind of religious cult out there that is into Satanism, Luciferianism, with selfish, demented, perverted motivations? Look at the Jewish people. Apparently, the bulk of the Jewish people today are not really Hebrews. They're called Ashkenazis. They're from Khazaria, the Khazars, who converted to Judaism more than 1,000 years ago. And weirdly enough, in the Bible, it says, Revelation 9, Jews who call yourselves Jews but are not, I know who you are. And there's books and material published that I've been going over and putting in my videos, where the Shepherdetic Jews, shepherd, get it? Shepherdetic, the original Hebrews, were having huge problems with these Khazarian Khazars, Aka-Nazi videos, get it? Like Hitler's Nazis, Aka-Nazi. And these were barbaric people from the north around the Ukraine, Poland, Western Russia, that whole area north of the Middle East, that didn't want to join the Muslim Islamic people's religion and didn't want to join the Christian Rome or Constantine's Orthodox Christianity religion. And as an alternative, it chose the religion of the God's chosen people. But these people were really not Hebrews or Jewish people. So is Jewish thing a religion? Is it a race? Or is it a cult? Is it the Kabbalah, or is it the original teachings from God? Least we get here. The prophecies after the original Jewish people were assisted to escape Egypt with Moses' assistant, apparently with God's assistance. They were prophesizing, or they had prophets that told them that a Messiah was coming. The teacher Moses had come 500 or 600 years earlier. And Jesus came as predicted, but was rejected. He didn't come as a warrior king to help them dominate the world. He came and preached love. So he was rejected. So for 2,000 more years, the Jewish people had something called the diaspora. They were dispersed all over the world. And now they're in some kind of program called Aliyah, where from all over the world they're coming back. And this has affected the whole world, if you can imagine. Wherever they had made investments and they had a propensity to acquire wealth and property control of resources, businesses, agriculture, mining, everything, banking. So when they all decided to move back to Israel, or I should say the hierarchy, the leadership wanted them to all move back from all over the world as part of a prophecy for this new age, new world order, Jewish utopia. It had to put a financial problem, destruction on all the countries where all these people were moving their manufacturing efforts from the United States, from Canada, from Brazil, wherever to the Middle East or elsewhere, because they were relocating to Israel. So it was changing the world 100 years ago. And they brought us World War I and World War II to help assist the powers that be to allow them and help them obtain the Palestinians' land. And 911 was just another nail in the project to hammer the thing home of this greater Jewish state. You can look it up on the computer, Greater Israel, on Yahoo image sites. So it seems there are these secret societies and groups behind the scenes, and you call them all kinds of names: communism, Illuminati, Zionism, high-level Freemasons, and other Masonic organizations, and other cults, including witchcraft. And they have a goal. They're bent on this new age and new world order. They control almost everything, if they don't control everything. And things are moving ahead really fast right now and changing. White Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter demonstration, protests, marches, riots, even killings. And now they're proclaiming people like President Donald Trump of being a Nazi. And God forbid you're a white male speaking out against almost anything, they call you a Nazi. So they have to increase the hate and the incite people and get more anger going on for the old war tactic of divide and conquer, the Hegelian dialectic, the cause, the action, and reaction. So they bring us a cause so they can take action, and the people will let them and approve, like 911, like Pearl Harbor, like the Reichstag building, the Germany's version of the Congress building in Germany, to be able to blame it on somebody else, so you can go to war and start destroying people, and motivate the patriotism of your people, motivate the patriotism of the Germans, motivate the patriotism of the Britons, motivate the patriotism of the Americans, motivate the patriotism of the French people, motivate the patriotism of the Chinese, motivate the patriotism of the Russians. So they got to stir up the pot and demonize somebody. And of course, we're even in a bigger pickle now than we've ever been. The technological advancements have been off the chart for 100 years due to Nikola Tesla and other scientists. And apparently, when I began my research, I never intended to be talking about these issues. I was just interested in alternate energy other than gas or nuclear power. As an engineering electronic technician, working at a major aerospace company for 10 years, it was always in the back of my mind, and I always had read magazines and studied. So it just seemed the right thing for me to do after 2001 and 2005, when I had a big 0 birthday and I was going through one of those changes in life. I said to myself, I've always said I wanted to do this, get into anti-gravity, get into other kinds of energies. I was in electronics and I knew a lot. Solar power, whatever I was going to do. Wind power, generators. But when I started studying some of the technologies, I decided to read some biographies of some of the older scientists and inventors, because I felt that the system was hiding something. Well, what I found out is a lot of these people, like Nikola Tesla, We're getting their information from someplace else. This fourth dimension, this other reality, other types of beings. Anunnaki, Palladians, I don't know. Angelic beings, spiritual people on the other side who had lived during the Atlantean times and other ages, I don't know. But that's apparently what happened. And even Nikola Tesla would say so. Now we have a lot of channelers channeling information, talking about the new age, saying the old age is no longer useful. And those who resist will perish. So we got these interesting parties controlling our world, keeping most of the people in the dark, and they have some advanced technologies. I read this book a long time ago. HAARP, Jerry Smith, The Ultimate Weapon of the Conspiracy. There's the transmitter there, I think, in Alaska. Let me read a little bit. Just wanted to give a little opening to show how I got here. I read this book years ago. I haven't made a video on this book and given it a series number yet because I had so many other books to do. Page, I should say the opening, the review page. Readers new to the topic will find HAARP, HAARP, the ultimate weapon of the conspiracy, to be informative. Smith clearly relates the project's history and the technology that preceded it. The chapter on inventor Nikola Tesla is well constructed, as is the description of what HAARP may be capable of. Everything from weather modifications to mind control, and this was Frank Spaeth in Fate magazine. So like I said, I've acquired this book. I think I have 2 of these books. And this book was published in 1998. And other books this book references the Lost Science series, Anti-Gravity Handbook, Anti-Gravity and the World Grid. I've got some of these books. The Cosmic Conspiracy, The Energy Grid, The Bridge to Infinity, The Harmonic Conquest of Space, The Vimana Aircraft and the Ancient Indian and Atlantis, Tapping the Zero Point Energy. I have that book. The Fantastic Inventions of Nikola Tesla. So there's more mentioned here. Moving on, some of the chapters are The Beast in the Wilderness, the Tesla connection, Electromagnetic Warfare. I believe that's the chapter we're going to be looking at. Chapter 3, Electromagnetic Warfare. I've been reading it the past couple days. I have read this book. It's in its entirety years ago, before I was highlighting and tabbing, so I had to reread and do some highlighting. That's how I keep track of what I've said, and I put little notes on there, part 4, part 5 video. So when I go back to a particular topic or book, I can read other parts I haven't read before and make more videos to further investigate these things that I've already investigated. So electromagnetic warfare, the Moscow signal, the Russian woodpecker, and Gwen and HAARP. So before I start reading from that, I want to talk about something I think that's relative and important. And I did just go online and make a short video about the topic. But there's a lot of videos, a lot of essays, press releases, material out there warning about 5G. We already have problems with the wireless energy, cell phone towers everywhere, cell phones, iPads, computers, games. Everybody's connected. Every corner you go on the street, or every movie theater or ice cream shop, pizza place, school system, bus, airplane, people are on their cell phones or one device or another. And then they got Gwen towers, which are a big tower with a cobweb-like wires at the base of it that go out 300 feet all around. So a big tower that goes into the ground with wires at all directions like a cobweb on the bottom, 300 feet all the way around, called a Gwen tower, ground radiation. And they're building them every 200 miles apart. Think about it. They're permeating everywhere, every 200 miles, to the north, to the west, to the east, to the south. A Gwen tower. And then from that one, 200 miles, everywhere, interlocking these ground radiations with 300 feet wire antennas in the ground. So they could effectively take a place the size of the United States. They could select 20 of these Gwen towers in a certain area. Let's just say Oklahoma, Texas. Turn them on to a particular polarity. You know, how magnets work. And where they would attract, or different polarity where they push apart. You can't get it together. Polarity. Everybody knows what a magnet is. So, assuming you see a weather front coming in that has a polarity, everything is electrical in nature, electromagnetic, and it was coming towards your area, you could charge the ground to either attract it with one polarity or repel it with another polarity. You getting my drift here? Gwen towers. Then they have the HAARP transmitters. "40 acres of these hundreds of transmitters aiming at the ionosphere, a large beam signal, and bouncing it, different frequency, different narrow patterns or wide patterns, and actually send signals over a whole city or larger area. And they have been studying what the different frequencies do to our emotions and our cells and our minds and communicating to us, mind control. If they could take a whole city, let's say they plan on a demonstration, a protest or something, and they want to step it up a notch or two. Aim the HAARP transmitter, beam it over that city, and for some reason the people unknowingly become very angry. Whether it's the conservatives brought out by those groups controlled by the puppet master, or the liberals brought out by the puppet master to clash with each other. And then things get a little crazy, and the people are none the wiser that the HAARP transmitter did it. Or maybe they integrated the Gwen Towers system into it. Or all the cell phone local towers in league with people's electronic devices and wireless systems. This is a reality that's unfolding before us. And part of that is about to be stepped up immensely with the 5G network, according to a lot of YouTube videos, alternate websites, people lecturing, press releases that you can go look up, books you can buy. So take a look at this little video I made, and it should give you enough information to take some notes and go watch some videos and look up some material to form your own opinion. Hello, I'd like to talk about the 5G network. Like it says above here, the 5G network. What you don't know may kill you. And you can see here they're planning on bringing us a new, microwave communications network. I think we're operating on 4G right now. So this article came out on April 3rd, 2017. So the new system will be 300 megahertz all the way to 300 gigahertz. That's billion cycles per second. And the cell phone towers are everywhere. New systems are being installed. If you drive around the town or city where you live, a lot of those towers will have numerous transmitters and receivers. More and more they're installing them everywhere. And it's going to be intervehicular and vehicle-to-road communication, massive machine-type communication, device-to-device communication, and so much more. Multi-stream, multi-flow, carrier aggregation, dual connectivity, and Wi-Fi integration, and millimeter or microwave and terahertz communication. So they will be permeating all of our reality with these microwaves and some lower and higher frequencies. With what kinds of capabilities, pulse rates, what kind of things do they know how the human body might be affected by these signals? Anyways, I just wanted to bring this to people's attention. It says here, how would you feel if you knew that an untested technology is being deployed across America with no government oversight, no transparency, no public input, no regulations, and no long-term studies on health and environmental impacts? To further that, I read an article in the newspaper, one of the press releases, that the state of North Carolina actually banned any public input. How would you feel if you knew sensors are rolling out to be installed in everything from clothing, appliances, building materials, automobiles, cosmetic, toys, computers, furniture, and turning our world into an internet of everything as a component of this untested technology? Reminds me of the Star Trek series in the Borg, where everybody has to be assimilated. And of course, that also reminds me of the Mark of the Beast, where everybody has to be microchipped. And those who resist, well, likely they won't be around. So wouldn't that be cool, living in a virtual reality where every single object and every living thing is connected into a wireless global network? Well, I guess it might be cool if the powers that be didn't have any sinister or malevolent intentions. Like depopulation, like a new age, a new world order, a satanic Luciferic religion destroying Christianity, promoting the rainbow agenda, pansexualism, sex with anything, transgenderism, so much more. We're all aware of these issues. Allowing every single thing we do to be completely monitored and controlled, collecting every bit of data about our lives as we go about our day. It also reminds me of Jade Helm 15 in 2015, when they were doing military exercises all over the United States. And they had computer software programs they were testing that were ultimately going to be making the decisions on who gets assassinated immediately in the event of a revolution, martial law, war, who gets imprisoned, who is allowed to roam freely. It won't be human decisions. It'll be computers based on metadata, what you might have purchased, what videos you might have watched on YouTube, what books you might have purchased, things you might have said on a phone to somebody. So much more. So they're planning to integrate these communication technologies with the 5G network with everything possible. Billions of interconnected, computer-controlled, beast brain type system. Ultimately, all this information will be sold and hacked to corporations, nations, and various alphabet agencies to be analyzed, synthesized, and made available for anyone to do as they please, because this new untested millimeter wave frequency, known as 5G, is currently being quietly deployed throughout America under the radar. So I suggest, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube, a lot of press releases, essays, articles, magazine articles, a lot of material out there warning us about this system coming online. Does it concern you? In my opinion, considering other activities, it should concern all of us. I think I'll just do a little simple science explanation. How does electromagnetism work? Basically, you have an antenna. And the antenna is usually the size of the wavelength. That's why your portable radios used to have antennas this big, or TV antennas were this big, and our cell phone antennas are now short little pieces. The higher the frequency, the shorter the wave. And what happens is at the transmitter, they pump electricity into the transmitter, and then they turn it off. And at a particular frequency, on and off, on and off, on and off, it radiates just like throwing a rock in a pond. You see those little ripples go all out from the center. So that's called the radiation rippling from the transmitter, hits an antenna like this magnet here, and when it crosses the wire with the magnetic field, it induces the electrons inside the wire to go with that polarity, thus putting the signal into the wire. Induction. A lot of people know this. Basic stuff you learn in high school these days or grade school. So you put an antenna up and there's all kinds of radio waves, microwaves, and even higher these days, up into the gigahertz, billions of waves. So how far will they go? So anyways, the key thing is, and this is what my little science class is all about, it's the antenna size that matters. It can't be too big, and it can't be too small. It has to match the wave coming out. For it to have induction, has to be the same size. Otherwise than that, it causes a canceling effect. Okay, so what's that have to do with what I'm talking about? The 5G network. Okay, this is a piece of copy paper. Same thing you might put in your printer. Just a square piece. But I'm going to use it as an example. Assume this piece, the size I have it here, is the width of a piece of copy paper. I'm just using this as an example. And that would be 100 microns. And for anybody who doesn't know, on a ruler, between my two fingers, you can't see it, but that's a centimeter. And 1/100th of that would be a millimeter, and 1/100th of that would be a micrometer. And 1/1,000,000th of that, with 1/1000th, would be a gigameter. So that's a centimeter. It's just breaking down from the centimeter. So you can see here on this little ruler, this could be measured in centimeters, millimeters. But for demonstration and eye purposes, this is the width of a piece of copy paper. If I blew it up in a microscope. Okay? My hair on my head is 50 microns. We're talking about electromagnetic radiation and antennas. So my hair is half as thick as this blue piece of paper. Okay? With that in mind, a cell in my body is this wide compared to my hair. So a human cell is like 8 microns. You didn't know this. So 100 microns, 50 microns. Some people's hair is a little thinner, some a little thicker, as we know. You can actually get up to 100 microns on hair, as thick as copy paper. And of course you can buy thicker copy paper. But anyways, when you use the example of the hair, 1/10 of the size of your hair is the size of a cell in your body. You have billions of cells in your body. And remember, electromagnetism permeates everything. Now, 5G network. Let's get to the point of this conversation. One wavelength of the 5G is the top of this piece of orange paper. So it's about 1/10 the size of your cell in your body. Think of it as an antenna. So your cell in your body would take 10 sine waves that will go right through it. That's what 300 megahertz is all about. Now, interestingly enough, that's 1/10 or 1 or greater of a cell size. But interestingly enough, it's almost exactly the size of a water molecule, this frequency. And remember, they start out at 300 megahertz, and it goes all the way up to 300 gigahertz, which is so small as this, I'd have to take a piece of my hair out to be a demonstration of how far 3 gigahertz is compared to this 300 megahertz. So now, in your cell, your water molecules will be the exact frequency of a 3 gigahertz signal. So it will match like an antenna, and induction will occur. And that's the theory also behind microwave ovens, which operate in this megahertz frequency. The frequency determines what agitates and puts induction, has to be the same size, as a water molecule to heat up a hot dog, water, an egg, whatever you put in your microwave. And of course, we know we don't put metal in there. So these frequencies and the sizes have some very interesting components to it that we should consider, things you can't see that can affect you. And they have been studying feverishly for a long time on the many side effects and control effects of this stuff. Could you imagine that? Anywhere from 10 cycles to 1,000 or tens of thousands of cycles in each cell of your body, and they knew how to adjust the frequency just right so it exactly fit, just like when you're tuning in a program on your AM or FM radio. You know, if you're a little bit off channel, it starts to get staticky. You got to tune it in exactly to get the nice tone in the song. Well, the same resonating effect happens when they get the right frequency or multiple thereof, like a harmonic, and they've learned how to even vibrate the water molecules in your cells, in your body, and we know that same physics applies to microwave ovens and a cup of water or food you cook in a microwave oven. they say, don't worry about it. We're not going to turn the amplitude, the energy level, up as high as a microwave oven. But what assurance do we have of that, considering the weaponized programs that have been tested on people already on electromagnetic radiations? They have something called the crowd control truck with a big dish on it. You can look it up on the computer. I've showed pictures in previous videos. So here's a whole crowd of people protesting against something the government's doing or whatever. And they pull up the truck and they aim the microwave at the people. And the people all start getting heated up. But don't worry, they won't turn it all the way up and cook you like a hot dog. So they say. Considering the fact that they are dumping chemicals in our sky every day. United States, I believe, is one of the few countries that allows them to feed us all GMO foods. And they won't even allow labeling. A lot of countries in the rest of the world have banned those foods. Then they've done biological testing on we the people in the USA, electromagnetic testing in Washington State, driving those trucks around. You can go look this up on your computer. And bringing us all kinds of false flags and inside jobs like 911, fake moon landings, fake gun shootings, bomb terror attacks, and so much more, faking events to bring us World War I, World War II. And they are bent on a new age and a new world order with all the propaganda. If you've been watching my videos, you're knowledgeable to some degree, and there's many other videos and many other books and many other websites and many other essays, articles, newspaper articles, magazines. Just a plethora of information out there that anybody can look up. So I just was curious when I have been hearing all the information about the 5G network. I wondered what the relationship size was to a human cell and how to demonstrate that on a video like this. So with that said, I'm going to read from the book here. Chapter 3, Electromagnetic Warfare, the Moscow Signal, the Russian Woodpecker, Gwen, and HAARP. I've explained what the Gwen towers are. It's a big tower with a big footprint like a spider web of wires in the ground, 330 feet all the way around. And they send the signal into the ground, and they're building them every 200 miles. All over the whole United States, so they can turn a portion of the ground into a positive polarity or a negative polarity, knowing full well that weather fronts, clouds, are electrically charged. Yes, we get lightning from them. And you can either attract them or repel them. They can turn the whole ground one polarity or another, as big of an area as they want to. It's in this book. All right, perhaps the Tuskegee event was not the first demonstration of an electromagnetic EM weapon. I think that's where some kind of electromagnetic weapon wiped out a huge area. Certainly scientists and military strategists since have sought ways to turn the electromagnetic spectrum to advantage in times of war. And everything, a huge portion of the USA GNP, gross national product, the taxes and everything, is spent on this defense and promoting and action for the new age and new world order. We have like 180 bases all over the world. So 70, 80, maybe 90% of the focus on the government is world domination. And who controls the USA government? According to Prime Minister Sharon of Israel, and one of his heated arguments in his Congress, that you can look up and see if this is true or not. Don't believe me. He said to those people who said that they needed to stop taking the Palestinians' land and stop killing the Palestinians, that America might cut off the money we're sending them every year to the tune of billions. And he said, don't worry about America, we control America. So I believe the secret societies, the Illuminati, high-level Freemasonic groups, Council of Foreign Relations, Bilderberger groups, Bohemian Grove groups, Club of Rome groups, and so many more cults and Masonic organizations and secret societies are in control, and I think they are in cahoots with the Zionism, communism movement, and obviously tied to the Illuminati, the Rothschilds, which financed a good portion of the activities in the newly founded state of Israel, which is all prophesized to come about, to bring about some kind of Armageddon and some future world ruled from Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. The aristocrats. The rest of the people will be like in the Hunger Games movies. So when you put all that into perspective and you listen to what I'm about to read, you might be a little concerned and you might say, wow, Rick, they could weaponize that 5G network. You think? All right, so curious minds have worked to understand the nature of light, electricity, and magnetism for hundreds of years. And I'm just wondering where the scientists got these tidbits of knowledge, like Nikola Tesla said. He said it wasn't him. He was getting it from some other world, an interdimension, dreams, visions, voices. So our beings from this other world, Palladians, Anunnaki, reptilians, gray aliens, watchers, archons, fallen angels, demons, Nephilim, so many other names they throw at us. Arcturians, Orions. Why did they seed humanity with this technological information to bring about an exponential curve in growth just to enslave the planet? Of course, I got one book here that says Harvesting of Souls. Is it some kind of predetermined plan to bring more people on Earth in their bodies, their souls, to harvest them? Is it some kind of cosmic battle? Just throwing my brain out there. Okay, out of this increasing understanding of electromagnetism, electricity, etc., have come ideas for weapons. Many ideas have been put forward. Some have even been tried. Radar is one successful application of this knowledge. HAARP is another. So I do have some pictures on the HAARP system here. I may as well show them now. Like I said, I read this book years ago. So a lot of background information goes into the videos I make on new books I read currently. So I say things and, where did I get it from? That's why I make these other videos, to show you where I got the information from after reading books for the past 13 years and making videos for the past 4 years. I've got 4 huge boxes of photographs, shoe boxes. I don't even want to calculate what that cost me. So anyways, all over the world they have these antenna arrays that work in unison with them, each of them, to create one powerful radiation. And apparently HAARP can bounce off the ionosphere, go anywhere in the world. And you can go on Yahoo image site and type in HAARP, find these pictures. There's a internet link right there to takes you to the website where the picture came from, so you can read what those people said. Anyways, here's a picture with it turned on, radiating a big signal, as you can see. Some people say they're controlling weather with it. More effects in the sky that are odd. We know they're dumping chemicals in the sky, and supposedly aluminum, brondium, strontium, and stuff like that, heavy metals. And of course, we know that electromagnetic energy, magnets, interact with metal, and if they're spraying heavy metals in the sky, they're getting in your body, my body, and if they have frequencies that match those metal particles, I suppose, just like putting a fork in your microwave, they could heat you up or me up. You think they've weaponized this stuff? Have they tested it? They are spraying. You can go outside your house probably and see it. They have these systems all over the world. Here's one over there in China, I think. Out there in the desert. Full spectrum biological, electromagnetic warfare, weather control, human mind control. Weather control, maybe? Some people are saying this. Some people smarter than me. I can't do everything. Anyways, they have these networks all over the world, strategically located. Why do you think that is? South America, Central America, Alaska, Norway, India. Oh my. Even ones that float. Mobile. You can go on the internet and find these pictures where they have these transmitters. See the little tags there? On this particular website, I suspect you click the tag, it tells you all about it. Did HAARP beam massive radio frequency waves into the ionosphere and bounce it down to cause the Chinese earthquake? Is World War III underway right now? Are the countries attacking each other, playing games at our expense, causing weather anomalies? Anyways, you can go on the internet. A lot of people made a lot of websites, wrote a lot of books, essays, reports, trying to warn us. And just contemplate this for a moment. All this is working. They're about to bring us 5G. Makes you want to say, oh gee. What can they do? Can they cause droughts? Can they heat up the center? They have this one website I used to go look at. I think they shut it down. The HAARP Status Network on the top by my finger. And you could go see where they were beaming the energy. So here you got HIPAS, Mu Radar, 6 of the different systems around the world. Oh, just dropped everything. High altitude frequency active aurora research program. You can go verify all this. You've probably seen some weirdness in the sky where you live. People are, even in the stuff they spray, you can see the different colors, the chemicals. Mobile systems. You've probably seen this in your sky. HAARP transmitter turned on, beaming up. Could they have used a system like this to take down the Twin Towers? So lots of information out there. I got this book I'm going to read from Jerry Smith. I've seen these kinds of patterns in the sky. Obviously something was disturbing the stuff they sprayed into the sky, electromagnetic energy. So they dump the chemicals into the sky. They have these electromagnetic transmitters and ground-based systems. Gwen towers, cell phone towers, satellites in space, cell phones, wireless systems, and they're working towards a new age and a new world order. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Wouldn't pay for a population of people to be ignorant or apathetic and don't care. Got some other pictures we'll look at, but I'll read from the book for a while. So this book is about HAARP and many other issues. So I thought I'd show the HAARP pictures and also my little demonstration of the size of a 300 megahertz signal. And it goes all the way up to 300 gigahertz. So they're much smaller, down to even short sizes of a water molecule in your body. So the ramifications are quite concerning, you think? Soviet scientists probably investigated Tesla's work for possible weapons. They delved deeply into the mysteries of electromagnetism, seemingly getting a sizable jump on the United States in this field. So I'll just explain it to you what they did. Apparently the United States was ignorant about these technologies. Apparently over there in Europe, by the way, which is where Tesla came from, Nikola Tesla, the Soviets were into this kinds of research and tried to convince the United States that it existed, but the United States just blew them off. So they set up a transmitter and aimed it at the United States Embassy in Moscow. And they beamed a microwave beam at the personnel, and they pulsed it, which is called the woodpecker energy. You can see why they call it a woodpecker. So they were pulsing the beam, and it was causing nausea, nosebleeds, and even goes as far as tumors, cancers, illnesses. So finally, the USA woke up. And apparently, as we all know, the world is controlled by the secret societies, even Russia. Don't believe it. If somebody tells you Putin's a great guy, he may be a decent guy, but Russia and their economy, their banking system, they still have these elites in charge. And remember, in 1917, Russia was invaded, the Tsar was killed, and the Bolshevik Jewish people took over Russia and proceeded to kill 25 million to, some say, 100 million people, Christians and other good people. And I find it very difficult to believe that that whole network of secret societies has just evaporated and no longer exists, even in Russia. And they were the communists for so long. So I think for economic and strategic reasons, they took down the wall. And it could be a huge deception, because they do plan on making a United States into a communist nation, the new age and the new world order, that we all see, with the propaganda of destroying religion and demanding globalization. And this is all in the Communist Manifesto, the Protocols of Zion, in the book The Jewish Utopia by Professor Hager, books I've made videos on. So there is this plan to kill off a good portion of the population, enslave the rest, and it does seem to involve some kind of four-dimensional entities, whatever you might want to think they are, whatever name of the many names they tell you. Remember, pagan religion, pagan means many gods. All right, I'm just going to read some of this stuff, just for, it's in the book here, educational purposes for people who may not know what this technical stuff is all about. But the three principal layers of the atmosphere are the troposphere, the stratosphere, and the ionosphere. So the ionosphere name is again taken from the Greek, in this case meaning to go. It is the root of ion, which is an electrically charged atom. So the highest level in our atmosphere is the ionosphere, and it is electrically charged with more atoms than the layers below it. It's ionized. That's important when you consider that you're aiming a HAARP transmitter beam up at the ionosphere, further ionizing it or deionizing it or punching holes into it, allowing cosmic radiation to come onto the planet. Above the atmosphere, entirely out of space, is the magnetosphere. Means magnet. So beyond that is a huge magnetosphere. We live at the bottom of the atmosphere called the troposphere. So it sounds like tropics. So there is a small layer above the Earth which has the oxygen and the air quality for humans and animals to live in. And of course we notice they're dumping all kinds of chemicals in it almost every day. And we can't see the electromagnetic either pollution or intentional biological electromagnetic warfare going on. This is where all surface-dwelling life forms are found, as opposed to water-dwelling life forms, which are in the hydrosphere. Officially, HAARP is intended to alter or perturb all those antenna arrays I've shown you, strategically located all over the world. And I read this book years ago and just never made a video on it, and I'm trying to complete my series of the things that I learned that formed my opinions as I read other books and learned about the secret societies and reasons maybe likely why President John Kennedy was killed in his famous speech. Secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life, and I intend to expose them. And so many other people have been assassinated that wouldn't go along or knew too much. So they got this HAARP transmitter. It perturbs the ionosphere. However, it appears to have the ability to affect all the regions of Earth from the lithosphere below our feet and the magnetosphere thousands of miles above our head. So apparently, even with this HAARP system, they can bounce it off the ionosphere and take X-rays of the ground. What do you think they're finding? Lost cities? Water supplies? Gold? Silver? What? And who controls these systems and who benefits? Could be lots of reasons why they would want to microchip everybody and control everybody like slaves. They don't want people finding out the truth about this aristocratic communistic class who is taking advantage at every turn. And of course they don't want to feed we useless food eaters. There's too many of us for them now. Air close to the ground is warm because the earth itself, the land and the surface of the sea is warm. Sunlight passing through the air near the sun surface does not heat the air directly. The earth and sea are warmed by the sun, and the heat is radiated from the land and sea into the air, warming the atmosphere. So even when they supposedly sent the Apollo aircraft to the moon, think about that. The air around them would have not been hot, but they would have been stopping without any protection from the magnetosphere or the ionosphere, Van Allen radiation belt. It would have been a craft out there all by itself with no protection. And the sunlight would have cooked those people. They couldn't have had a big enough air conditioning system to prevent it. That's one of the technical reasons why they could not have gone to the moon. Not even mentioning the cosmic particles that would have went right through those skimpy little Apollo aircraft. They would have had little BB holes all in their body. Anyways, stuff you learn. The principal characteristics of the troposphere, the part of the atmosphere that we live in, is that it gets colder the higher you go up. In the stratosphere, it is the other way around. The air gets warmer the higher you get. In the stratosphere, the air gets warmer with the height because at that altitude, sunlight is energetic enough to directly heat the air. So on the troposphere, it's warm at the surface. And as I get higher up there flying in a plane, it's colder. But in the next level, the stratosphere above the troposphere, it's actually warmer, colder on the bottom, and the higher you go up after that, it gets hotter because there's no defense from the sun to heat the molecules of the air, the gases. Convection, this is important when you want to understand weather control. So convection cannot occur in the stratosphere. So in the stratosphere, where it's actually colder and then goes to hot, convection can't occur because it's hot to cold. But in the troposphere, it's cold to hot. So the heat gets the water to vaporize, and the warm air gets into the cold air and condenses. Have you ever seen an air conditioner? And then that releases rain. So it's got to get colder to condense. Now imagine if you're using a HAARP transmitter or whatever, or putting chemicals in the sky, metal particles, aluminum, bromium, strontium, all that stuff, which they're doing, coal ash, you can see it every day. And then the sunlight, one thing, would warm those particles up. Forget HAARP for a moment. And so we'd have warm and warm, so you wouldn't have condensation. The particles alone would heat up the air because the sunlight would hit them. But if you aimed HAARP at them, then you would heat all that up from the pictures I showed you, and then you would have hot and hot on the bottom, warm, and you wouldn't have condensation. The water, the ice crystals you see on your air conditioning pipes. So I guess they're talking about conditions for weather control. Just saying, if you did put particles in the troposphere higher up where it's cold, those particles floating around would get hit by the sun, or HAARP, which is like a microwave transmitter, a microwave oven, and they could control the weather, and there would be no rain. They are using those systems, there is no question. Okay, so the stratosphere acts as a literal lid on the troposphere, locking virtually all the weather into the region below. So the weather is locked into the troposphere, and you understand how it works. On the ground it's warm, you go up in a plane, it's cold. Water vapor evaporates, gets into the cold air, it condenses. The stratosphere averages about 30 miles thick, with its highest and warmest layer being about 50 miles over our heads. The stratosphere contains nearly all of the remaining 15% of the atmosphere not found in the troposphere. Above the altitude of about 25 miles, there is less than 1% of the atmosphere remaining. The world-famous ozone layer lives in the stratosphere. The ozone layer is caused by the air absorbing ultraviolet radiation from sunlight. The molecules with 3 atoms of oxygen is called ozone. An oxygen molecule is just 2 atoms of oxygen bound together. So an oxygen molecule is 2 atoms, and ozone has an extra atom. Ultraviolet radiation is energetic enough to knock loose the binding loose, creating lone oxygen atoms, which are then free to line up with the oxygen molecules, creating ozone. Ultraviolet radiation is energetic enough to knock that binding loose, and that creates the ozone. And we know ozone depletion is not a good thing. This takes place throughout the stratosphere, although the majority of ozone is made near its middle altitudes at about 30 miles up. Above the stratosphere lies the topmost layer of the atmosphere, the ionosphere. So you got the ozone level below, and then higher than that you have the ionosphere. The ionosphere is hundreds of miles thick and also shows more or less distinct layering. Scientists in turn have subdivided the ionosphere into several regions. And remember, the conversation here is this HAARP transmitter bounces radiation signals off of the ionosphere. Scientists in turn have subdivided the ionosphere into several regions. Some scientists use the Greek and Latin naming system and have called these layers things like mesosphere, meaning middle, thermosphere, meaning hot, and other scientists have gone with referring to the layers as simple letters D, E, F1, and F2, and so on. So they're talking about the ionosphere. As well as not agreeing with the names used, they are rather divided on the altitudes and characteristics of these levels. If HAARP really were used for ionosphere research, it might help to sort this mess out. Okay, I'm going to skip a few things here on that technical stuff. Entirely beyond the atmosphere, out in space, is the magnetosphere. There are many other topics in this book, but I have to just start somewhere and get into the other applications of mind control and other effects of these systems. But right now I'm just going to get the 2 hours and contribute as much as I can to my knowledge or anybody else's knowledge who might want to watch this video about these systems that are in place and about to be expanded to the 5G. And there are plenty of books about all the testing and they've done on mind control and other effects on electromagnetic radiations on people and on equipment like EMF waves. So let me continue reading. I hope you're getting something from this. At least you know the book exists. And other books, when you go on abebooks.com and other used book sites, when you order a book like this, they usually recommend similar books that other people purchased. So you can further your knowledge on the kind of weaponry they're gearing up with, especially like in Jade Helm 15, those computer software programs they were testing and using that will be making military decisions if they do enact martial law or some natural disaster. I shouldn't say natural. Some disaster that they claim is natural that they create, maybe. And apparently, I was watching some videos this morning. They are shipping some of those people in Texas, apparently, according to some videos, unless those people are blatantly lying, but they're sending some of those people to the Walmarts that are now FEMA camps. Oh my, since 2015, the 16, we're in 17. When is the big event going to happen? Some people say September 23rd, this month. Some kind of celestial alignment with the astrology, stars, in prophecy. So there's YouTube videos about this stuff. But they've been saying it for a while. But on the other hand, they've been moving forward for a while. All right, so where was I here? So we talked about convection, how that works. Ultraviolet rays. Entirely beyond the atmosphere Out in space is the magnetosphere. And the Earth is a giant magnet. Think about that for a minute. Surrounding it are magnetic lines of force. The Van Allen radiation belts are zoned of charged particles, photons, electrons, and alpha particles, captured by these magnetic lines of force. These particles come from what is known as solar wind. They stream to Earth from the sun and from outer space. So if the Apollo craft really were to have gone to the moon, it would have had to have gone through the Van Allen belt, which is an ionization and electromagnetic field. And once it went through that, it would be exposed to solar wind and cosmic particles. It would have had to have a thick lead lining, and they couldn't have afforded or had systems that could lift that kind of weight off the Earth to the moon and back and all that. Just the logistics doesn't exist. The technology. And now they say we lost the technology, so we can't duplicate what we did back then. What kind of garbage is that? Just saying, so much deception. Okay, like HAARP, I'm skipping some stuff here. NASA's space shuttle is an example of a civilian science project built to further a military agenda. Since when has NASA been civilian? Look at the symbols. The shuttle was designed under military contract, so they're calling it a civilian setup, but it was financed by the military. To service low-altitude military space assets. To do real science, however, you need to get your scientific hardware well out of the atmosphere, which is where you will find civilian satellites and where you will not find the space shuttle. The majority of civilian telecommunications and pure science satellites are found from a little below 15,000 miles to nearly 23,000 miles above the Earth's surface. The geosynchronous orbit keeps the spacecraft more or less parked over one spot on the Earth. Some say this really doesn't exist. HAARP, if used to create high levels of electrons in the upper ionosphere, has the potential to knock out satellites and other space assets in near-Earth orbit, clearly a potential military objective of the program. Okay, moving on. The ionosphere, then, is a region of the atmosphere that contains a high percentage of charged particles and free electrons, a place where the atoms of oxygen and other gases are constantly losing and gaining electrons. Ionization is the process of producing ions by exposing atoms to radiation with enough energy to dislodge electrons. In the ionosphere, this is caused by the sun daily bombarding the Earth with hard radiation from its nuclear furnace, such as with X-rays and gamma rays. The Earth is also continuously struck by other forms of radiation from space called cosmic rays. So like I said, they could not have designed back then an Apollo craft to go through all that. Would have had to have been one huge, thick craft. And that's not what the pictures show. Radiation that can cause ionization to take place is called the ionizing radiation. That's the stuff that atomic bombs spew out, which has made the world so uneasy for 50 years. It's also what they try to keep bottled up inside nuclear reactors And what makes nuclear waste so deadly? It's this radiation. A lot of us know that. I keep a meter on my desk all the time. It's going on right now, you can see. And I can tell you firsthand, I watch this thing. Normally it's at 12, 16, even 17 counts per minute. And I can turn the volume on and it clicks like a Geiger counter. But lately, I could tell that waves of radiation were coming into my area, and I live in a small little valley in the mountains of North Carolina, and it goes up to 29, 35, and it's a little concerning to me. I see it peaking up, and also when weather fronts come through, it peaks up, and it does seem to cause me, whether it's the radiation, I'm not sure, but when the weather fronts come through, I get asthma attacks, and sometimes serious, seemingly attacks on my health, fatigue, and weirdness. But I have this meter, and I can tell that there is more nuclear radiation floating through the air. And they do have websites on the internet where they have these meters all over the country. And you can buy one of these and set it on your desk, plug it into your computer for electricity, charge the battery. All right, back to the book. Life on this planet exists because of the atmosphere's ability to absorb ionization radiation in the ionosphere and the stratosphere. If these layers weren't there, the surface of the Earth would be constantly awash in a deadly bath of ionizing radiation. The ionosphere stops the sun's most violent radiation from making ions. So you got the troposphere, stratosphere, ionosphere. And the condensation can't happen in the stratosphere because it's cold on the bottom and warm on the top. It does happen in the troposphere because it's warm near the Earth, and then you go up in a plane, it gets cold. Water vapor rises, it gets cold, and it condenses. Just so you can understand the science of it, and if they put all those particles with chemtrailing into the air, obviously the sunlight and electromagnetic radiations would heat up those metal particles, warming the upper troposphere and disabling condensation. So reading this stuff does have its perks and benefits. You learn a little bit more. So I'm not trying to do an audiobook. I just like to have a couple-hour conversation when I do a video. Later on, I'll read this book. I've already been reading it. I read the whole book entirely years ago. But you know, you forget stuff. You have to read it again and think about it. And making these videos helps me think about it again and again, furthering my own knowledge. The ionosphere stops the sun's most violent radiation by making ions. The stratosphere filters out most of the rest of the sun's weaker radiation, ultraviolet light, by making ozone. So the ozone is in the middle layer of the stratosphere. The higher level has the ions. This is why a reduction in the ozone layer can pose a threat to life on this planet, and why HAARP's deliberate meddling with the ionosphere is so frightening. It took us a long time to get there. There is also non-ionizing radiation. That is the part of the electromagnetic spectrum that we live in. Electromagnetism is a subject that is still poorly understood by science. They know what it does and how to work with it, but a fundamental understanding of why it exists still seems to be decades or even centuries off. Science knows that a moving electrical current produces a force field, which radiates out from it. That's how a radio station transmitter works. Pulsing signals, frequencies, and then they modulate an audio signal onto it. A force field that radiates out from it. Time for water. Well, most of us already know this answer here. So when the radio transmitter sends out radiation waves, electromagnetic waves, it's called electromagnetic radiation, EMR, because it radiates away from its source. This field of non-ionizing radiation is both one field and two fields at the same time. One field is electric, and the other magnetic, and yet the two are one interrelated electromagnetic phenomenon. There may also be a third field of gravitational waves. That was one of the things I wanted to get more involved in ever since I was a young boy. And I'm sure a lot of young kids are that way, boys or girls. You know, gravity fascinates us. These are called scalar waves. So apparently they can affect gravity with some kind of gravitational waves, and they're called scalar waves. Apparently they're supposed to have some knowledge about scalar waves, not telling the rest of us, and they have weaponized these kinds of technologies. That's just interesting to know. Anyways, it's not yet accepted by conventional science. Many researchers, however, do believe they exist. The Russian woodpecker, which we will get to in a moment, is believed by some to be a weapon using scalar technology, which would make it far more advanced than anything in the West. And another idea how to understand scalar waves. It's like a sound wave. You can speak into your hand. You can feel the vibrations. It's how your ear works. Well, if you take microwaves, many different frequencies, and you pulse them, let's say you pulse it 5 seconds apart. Pulse, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pulse. What kind of effect would that have on a person? Or 3 seconds apart? Or the ground to cause an earthquake? Because even Nikola Tesla did that experiment. He created a device that he put on a steel building that was under construction. Had all the steel girders up. Men were up there working. But he had this idea. And it was like a vibrator. And he put it to the building, and if you fine-tune it to the right frequency to that building, brr, 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 the whole thing starts shaking. And eventually, the vibration grows to an untold, huge magnitude, and this thing starts bursting apart. And apparently, they can do that by pulsing like the HAARP system on the ground. Boom! Boom! And the thing, like pushing your kid on a swing, gets higher and higher. They've been testing these things, and there's accusations that have been made. That earthquake off of Japan, China. So the powers that be are playing games that most of us are unaware of. Dangerous games. Meanwhile, they want to depopulate the planet, so these weapons will probably be used against the citizens by some created event causing riots or whatever, an economic collapse, a terror event, shutting down the system, some nuclear explosion in some harbor, stopping all the semi-tractor trailer trucks, EMF pulse, turning off all the electricity, stuff in your freezer will be gone in days. No water coming through the pipes, no sewer system. Would they do it? Do they plan on doing it? Everything electrical, from the wires in the walls and household appliances to the high-tech industrial equipment, emits non-ionizing radiation. The air around us is filled with the unseen energies of radio, television, and microwaves. Remember, this book is 1998, I believe. Come a long ways, almost 20 years. And now they're getting ready to release the 5G network on us. 300 megahertz to 300 gigahertz. And they've been studying relentlessly, weaponizing these tools, mind control, getting ready for something, in my opinion, from my research and all the stuff I read, videos I watch, events that are taking place, protests, demonstrations, White Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter. How crazy are the people to not see they're being played for fools? It's not against, we shouldn't be against each other. We have some higher level elites in these secret societies that have plans for a reduced population. I've gone over the books. I've got other books and other documents. This goes back into the 1800s. The immediate effect of this daily bath of electromagnetic pollution is generally imperceptible, but the long-term consequences can be life-threatening, as I will demonstrate shortly. This danger can be seen, for example, in the increase in incidence of cancer, leukemia among people living near high-tension power transmission lines. So there's plenty of reports out there. There's plenty of evidence that this information is being suppressed. I personally can't hold the cell phone up to my right ear anymore. I don't know what happened, but apparently it cooked something in there and it popped and it was painful and I was suffering. And so now for my business, I hold the cell phone up to this ear, which should last me a while because I've been cooking this ear for 10 years. So I think I might have to do something more drastic and get rid of the cell phone or get a headpiece or something. And I've heard of other people dying, cancer in the head or the brain. And if you hold a couple cell phones together, you can see this on YouTube videos. Get two of them aimed right at each other, transmitter antenna, and two more, and just throw a match in the middle. The match will ignite. So just imagine what it does to our bodies. All right, back to the book. We are sometimes also hit with bursts of ionizing radiation. You could get a dose of this deadly radiation if you happen to be unfortunate enough to be downwind from a nuclear weapons test, or downwind from a nuclear radiation leak from a power plant, or a bunch of wind coming off the ocean or off of Fukushima. We're living in a very precarious world right now. Where will it all end? All right, so downwind from an atomic plant that needs to vent, which occurs all too frequently, or as the result of a nuclear accident like the 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl. It does not take a big accident to kill you. On June 4th, 1997, the Department of Energy released the results of a 6-year study of strategies for the treatment, storage, and disposal of radioactive and hazardous waste generated by American nuclear weapons productions. Well, the most insane idea that they've come up with, this kills me. They were putting the depleted uranium in rocket shells and firing them in Iraq. Depleted uranium all over the desert, all over the towns. Crazy? Do you think? What will they not do to us? The secret societies. The only thing we can do to save ourselves, I think there's two things. One is we can wake each other up. And two, this invisible reality, the God world, does exist. We can pray, talk to God, and understand the satanic, demonic activities going on, the symbolisms that are everywhere. Football halftime shows, Super Bowl, Emmys, Grammys, Olympic openings, put the archway of Baal in New York and London, an archway to the devil. Ceremony at CERN, the ceremony at that tunnel opening over there in Switzerland, a goat on the Hoover Dam, goddess of destruction Shiva on the Empire State Building, and then the day that the Supreme Court approved of or made a law banning states from banning gay marriage, that same day, rainbow colors, designs were on bridges and buildings all across the country. How could they set that up in a day? They didn't. It was for public consumption. Part of the New Age and New World Order. I was going through my pictures looking for those HAARP pictures, and I saw some other pictures. I thought I would just show them in this video. But a lot of people know the New World Order is real, that it's a Zionist, communist, Illuminati. Apparently, well, most people don't want to admit it, a satanic Lucifer thing, including things like the Palladians and Anunnaki, Planet X. And apparently for the last 4 or 5 years or longer since I've been paying attention, the news is off the chart about some incoming planetary body. And they get so serious about it lately in the news. I was watching a long video about an hour yesterday and today. And they seem to be trying to convince we the people of the world that this thing is real. Comes through every 3,600 years. Clues get warm and search for Planet X. You can see the website where this stuff comes from. More information than you probably want to pay attention to on the internet. People's photographs. Even apparently NASA or somebody blocking out things. That's been going on for years. Harrington, I guess in when did he die? Planet X and the mysterious death of Robert Harrington, one of the people, an astronomer who reported this. And other weirdness in the news. Just saying, this New World Order and the government with these HAARP systems and other technologies bringing us the 5G network, not permitting any public dissent, opinion, intervening, stopping it. One guy had put this video out a few years ago, which I thought was fascinating. But why would they have these machines at Yellowstone? It looks like it's a big thumper. Why would they be pounding the ground? Some people were saying they were trying to induce some underground activity at Yellowstone. Just saying that these are some of the pictures. This one here I reported in some of my videos. Just painting a picture here. There's some weird stuff going on in our reality. And they have all these HAARP weaponries and biological weapons and economic weapons and terror weapons and report from Iron Mountain, the book that details those plans in 1967. Confessions of an Economic Hitman, John Perkins, how they're bankrupting countries all over the world. The New World Order is real. Planning to depopulate the planet. Even the stories about aliens in secret laboratories underground apparently are abducting people and creating some kind of hybrid human alien being. And a very interesting investigation that I've been doing, and I'm sure a lot of other people. But anyways, I was driving down the highway in my city, and I saw this billboard. I couldn't believe it. Bottled water, and this is the 3-6 sign. That means the mark of the beast. The 6 is the first 0 and 1, another 6 and another 6. And of course, the all-seeing eye, one eye, and then the devil sign, those are the horns. The president has done this. His daughter was doing it, Jenna, previous president. The Pope. We all know the satanic Lucifer thing seems to be real, involving these Palladians or other beings, fallen angels, archons, watchers, masters, demons, fallen angels. And part of it's with the gray aliens, as per Aleister Crowley's book, series number 23, the Book of the Law. And you know what the one law is? Do as thou wilt. The second law is referred to number 1, do as thou wilt. So you can do anything you want. There's no commandments from God. Anyways, this 6 thing, and it has an eye in the middle. No kidding. I saw this driving down the highway, and the rainbow colors. I don't know if there's any other symbolism on any of those other bottles or shapes. So they're putting this stuff right there on the highway. And then, of course, I talk about this a lot. I'm just showing you the character of what's going on in the background by the secret societies, this New Age and New World Order, the people who have these technologies I've been showing you. So they have something called Eurovision. Notice the rainbow colors. It's like the American Idol program here in the USA. Even that heart there in the logo has a sideways cross on it. This would be the normal cross. It's a sideways cross. Song Contest 2014. And the winner was Cochita Wurst. The head like Jesus, and look at his fingers here. A dress like a female and dressed like a female from the neck down. Again, that's part of the androgynous. The devil ball is androgynous. Lucifer is androgynous, male and female. I got so much more here I could show you, but I'd rather read from the book and save these other pictures. I will show one thing. Actually, 2 things. I was up in Maine, 2013, hanging out in Camden, nice little town on the coast. I grew up in Maine. But the bartender said she knew I was a bit of a researcher. She said, "Rick, you want to see a picture?" I said, "Sure." She goes, "We threw a Bible in the woods in a burning fire, a bunch of us partying at night. So we threw a Bible into the fire." And she said, "I took a picture. You won't believe it." What do you see? You see a devil? See the horns on top of the eye? It gets freakier. See a devil that way? So no matter which way you turn it, just say. And as far as the planet Nibiru thing, I've been photographing the sun with filters, just trying to see if I noticed anything going on. And so I've been taking these pictures, and you can see the sun, and using a filter on your camera, and you can see those other orbs around the sun, which apparently are reflections. I've been doing it for a year. I have literally thousands of these. I have some posters behind me here, you see. There's the sun. So when you use different filters, you can get these effects. It's quite an artistic thing. I always thought I might want to blow up more of these and make some artwork. Here's an interesting one. Oh, I got that light reflection in there. They look cooler without that reflection of light. I thought if I had the money, I'd go make more posters. Or maybe get these put on t-shirts. But anyways, I keep track of what the sunlight looks like with all these filters, just in case something changes. I can take pictures, and after doing this since 2012, I was in Santa Fe, and my friend had a welder's mask, the whole thing you put on your head. I put the camera inside, aimed it at the sun, and started getting some other filters and learned how to do this. But you can see those orbs that I take that are around the sun. So a lot of those videos you see by other people, I recognized what they're getting, and if you move your camera around, you can move those reflections around. Well, I didn't touch on a lot of the information I wanted to. You can get this book. I will be making future videos from it. But let me read for a few more minutes. The final Waste Management Programmatic Environmental Impact Statement came to a startling conclusion. Between 11 and 69 Americans would die as a result of transporting nuclear radiation waste. Some of these deaths would result from the exposure of the transport crew members and the populations along the transportation routes of the radioactive and hazardous material being shipped. Others would occur from accidents independent of the waste cargo. And of course, we're all aware of Fukushima, and apparently on the Columbian River in Washington State, there's a nuclear waste causing all kinds of destruction. We're aware of the Gulf oil spill and many others, and apparently lots of nuclear radiation power plant leaks, venting. They don't even bother to tell us. And that's why I have a meter. And currently the meter is 32. I told you it gets high. And I just looked at it, it said 32. It goes up and down. A little concerning. All right. The electromagnetic spectrum also includes the ionizing radiation above the frequency of visible light, ultraviolet light, gamma rays, X-rays, and so on. So I wonder what kind of... They do know some of these rays are dangerous to humans. And my question is, what won't they weaponize? Is that a fair question? And why don't they want any public input on the 5G network? Why did they do Jade Helm 15? Why are they pulling out the white lives, black lives matter to increase or incite hate? Why? There's so many videos out there, clear evidence that 911 was an inside job. Why won't they expose that and arrest the culprits? Why? Like the atmosphere, the electromagnetic spectrum has been divided into frequency ranges useful to science. The non-ionizing portion of this spectrum that we are familiar with includes radio, television, and microwaves. Of special importance to HAARP are the top and bottom ranges of this portion of the spectrum. Extremely low ELF waves from 0 to 1,000 cycles per second, below 1 kilohertz, and high frequencies just below the realm of visible light. Down here below it says, this was interesting here, I did some homework on this. This new 5G network includes the ranges of the frequencies that your microwave oven uses. And when I worked at a aerospace company for 10 years, I have an electronic technology degree from UEI out of Tampa, Florida, worked at a major aerospace company near the Kennedy Space Center. And when you walked near those big microwave dishes, there were big signs posted to not walk in front of it because they were dangerous. And I understand, even on battleships and stuff like that, people who stepped into their path were zapped and killed. And on the Philadelphia experiment, they put these microwave transmitters all around the ship, turned them on, and the ship disappeared. Apparently showed up in different places around the earth, some kind of time portal. The Jacob's Ladder was a type of a time portal. Project Montauk apparently is some kind of time portal. CERN, the collider with all those demonic ceremonies, is some kind of portal. The Archway of Baal they put in New York and London, and later on I found out through UNESCO they were putting 1,000 of those up all over the world. Can they have some kind of witchcraft and symbolism to create demonic portals? UFO craft have been sighted flying into a dark spot and disappearing, or a dark spot would appear and it would fly out of it, apparently a portal. Apparently gray aliens and other creatures have walked right out of a wall or into a wall from somebody's room of a person who was being abducted. So what kind of science is out there that we're not aware of? So you can see where I went during my investigation of reading books for almost 10 years before I started making videos. I looked at a lot of topics. I knew that the UFOs and aliens were involved with all this New Age and New World Order, and seems to be involved with Planet X, Nibiru, and this New Age and New World Order, and the same kinds of discussions they had in 1910, 1920 with the communist people who were trying to infiltrate all aspects of our society. And these are the people who have these technologies. If that's not alarming, I don't know what is. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle Reporting.